Hi everyone, and today I wanted to talk to you about track day. Why I think everyone who rides a bike should do a track day, and the reasons behind that. So I very recently have done a track day at Castle Combe Circuit in Wiltshire. I didn't do it on this beast, I did it on my CBR 650. The main reason I didn't do it on this is because I've got this SB Engineering carbon stubby can on here, and it's frankly too bloody loud for the really strict noise regulations that they have at Castle Combe. So why didn't you just fit your original exhaust back on the blade, I hear you say? Good question. Actually, Castle Combe's noise limits are so tough that there are a number of bikes that even in standard road legal trim as they come fresh from the factory are too noisy to get onto the track. The current Fireblade and this model Fireblade with the original exhaust are borderline and will often fail. So why am I saying that I think that everyone who rides bikes should do a track day? Well, the main reason behind it is because it allows you to explore the limits of your bike in a safe, controlled environment. And by doing that, I would argue that it makes you a better road rider. Let me explain. Riding on the road, we all know that sometimes, despite how loud our bikes are, how many lights we've got on the front, that we can sometimes be invisible to other road users. And that people do silly things and pull out in front of us and such like, and sometimes we have to really slam on the anchors. So let me ask you a question. When was the last time that you had to emergency brake or use your brakes in real anger to avoid a difficult scenario? Now I bet the vast majority of people will say, oh, I can't really remember, or I'm not sure I have had to absolutely use my brakes to the limit on the road. And that's my point. Riding on track, you can really lean on your brakes and find out that those points, especially today with modern bikes and ABS on them, if you can squeeze them and use them as hard as you like, finding that point where the ABS starts to kick in, or understanding the performance of your brakes completely, because you don't want to have to find out the performance of your brakes and how quickly you can apply them and various other bits and pieces when you're in that situation of, oh my god, if I don't use them properly now, I'm going to end up splatting all over upon it. So the first thing for me is being able to really aggressively use your brakes and find where the lock-up point is and things like that, so that you're more confident that if a situation arises on the road and you have to use your brakes in anger, you know exactly where things are and you're going to do it as effectively as possible. The second thing for me is cornering. Riding on track, you can really experiment with your lines through corners. Now obviously on a road you're not going to be taking the racing line, cutting the apex on the road and doing all those sorts of shenanigans, but what it does do is it allows you to see how the bike behaves when you take different lines through corners. And for me the big learning experience was the whole thing about looking further up the road and looking ahead to where I want to go. Very helpfully, at each of the corners, what they do is they put a number of different coloured cones down at the side. So you'd have a cone down marking your braking point, you don't have a cone marking your turning point, and you don't have a cone marking the apex of the corner. And for me, that thing of barrelling up, hitting my braking point, then getting off the brakes, doing all your braking in a straight line, and getting off the brakes as you hit your turning point, turning the bike in, and then just as you're hitting the apex, getting back on the throttle to power out of the corner. And whilst you might not be using the same lines and the full width of the road on public roads, the principle is exactly the same, of coming up to a corner, choosing your braking point, getting all your braking done before the corner so that you're off the brakes, seeing where your turning point is on the road, and then getting back on the throttle to get yourself through the corner. And that was a huge, massive learning experience. And I've been applying that just in the few days since the track day of my road riding. The third thing for me, and kind of, I know you could call it also linking in with the second thing, is again to do with cornering, but it was about body positioning. Now, on a track, there were plenty of more experienced riders than me, flying along, hanging halfway off the bike, scraping their knees. Great, you know, and that's the sort of thing you could do on track and have a good laugh with. But what I learned was you don't have to have your knees scraping on the ground in order to help your cornering. But in terms of body positioning, of shifting your weight, of how much more you can keep the bike upright, carry more corner speed, simply by getting your weight across. And it's a simple thing of, you know, coming into a right hand end of, you know, using counter steering, dipping your right elbow down like that, and getting your head right out over across your wing mirror right there. So that's kind of your position that you want to be. And yeah, you could shift your shifting your bum off, you're getting half a bum cheek hanging off, and sometimes your knee will naturally come out. Other times you want to keep your knee in because you don't want the drag on a faster sweeping bend. And conversely, for the left-hander, you're pushing away on that handlebar, pushing away like that, dipping your head over that wing mirror there. And the effect that that has on your cornering is, well, for me it's indescribable. You know, I did a number of sessions through the day, probably a total of about an hour and 3/4 of actual track riding. You know, had an instructor who was giving me tips and advice. And the last couple of sessions of the day, well, I had a first. I managed to scrape the pegs on my 650. So that shows you how far I was leaning the bike over, how much I was hanging off, how much confidence I had in cornering. I'll try and pop in a picture here of my rear tyre. This rear tyre was brand new a week before the track day. I scrubbed it in a little bit beforehand, and when I got up to Castlecombe, it had about 300 miles of use on the tyre. So virtually a brand new tyre. And okay, Castlecombe is predominantly a right-hand circuit, so you get more wear on the right. But you can see here in the picture what the right-hand side of my tyre looked like after I'd finished on track. Using absolutely every inch of it, bobbling it up. That's the confidence that just one day of track riding had given me. And my first proper day of, you know, track riding. And there's some video of when I did one of those come along and ride the Ducati days at Silverstone, but that was constantly behind an instructor at a controlled speed. We weren't allowed to be let off the reins. So it was my first, you know, the first few sessions were, yep, behind the instructor, follow the lines, then let's follow you and see how you do. And then after a couple of sessions it was like, yeah, go on, I'll ride up, you can go and ride as you want, overtake as you want, ride as fast as you want, have some fun. So if I can go from where I was right at the very beginning of the morning, before doing any track, to where I was there, that shows you how much you learn from just doing a track day. Hopefully, if I've got my arse into gear, that I've got a video up of a few of my laps at Castlecombe for you to have a look at. So some do's and don'ts on a track day. Certainly do enjoy yourself. Do explore the limits of your bike. Do relax. That's a really important thing. If you're really tense, and I was that first session, my God, it just won't help you. Some don'ts. Don't ride like a complete and utter lunatic. And on the day that I did it, there were two people that had offs. One had quite a nasty high side and knocked himself out, but was back later and was fine, no problems. And someone else really overcooked it, ran wide up onto the grass, managed to kind of keep it stable, slow it down, and kind of had one of those, you know, topple off it at that last little bit, kind of at 10 miles an hour. Did a little bit of damage to the bike, not too much, fortunately. He was perfectly fine. So don't ride like a complete and utter lunatic, because you know, you will come off and hurt yourself. And that kind of brings me on to what I just said about those that had the offs. You know, ride for yourself on the track and set your own personal targets. Don't get sucked in by trying to race or chase riders in front of you. It's so easy to do. You see someone, you think, right, I want to catch them, and if they're a bit better than you or a bit quicker than you, you're trying to catch them and you're thinking, oh, I know, I'll catch them a little bit in the braking area, and so you leave your brake in a little bit later, and then the next lap is a little bit later, or the next corner is a little bit later, and you keep getting later until you're just going to run out of track and come off. So don't chase other people, ride your own laps. Try and set yourself some personal objectives. So it didn't take long to learn the Castle Combe track layout. I think it's pretty simple. But there was, well, I couldn't tell you all the names of all the corners. I kind of could see in my mind and knew what was coming up. There was one bit after a kind of chicane where I just couldn't get the line right. Every time I was thinking, oh no, yeah, I'm taking too shallow a line. I need to try and do it a little bit better. And so on the next session when I went out, all my focus was on, after that chicane, getting my line right for that particular corner. And then once I've mastered that corner, I was then thinking about, where's the next challenge, where's the next bit? And my aim for the end of the day was for me to ride a perfect lap. Now that might not have been my fastest lap. It certainly wasn't the fastest lap of anyone out there, but it was a perfect lap that I'd hit all my braking points at the right place, I'd hit all my turning points in the right place, and I'd got close to and hit all my apexes. And pretty much I did achieve that. As I said, there were some other laps where I went perhaps a little bit quicker and were a bit scruffier, but you know, you set yourself those personal targets to try and improve, and I think that way you can get the most out of a track day. And the final thing, which was really good advice, is it's very easy, especially on some of the quicker bits, to think, oh, I wonder how fast I'm going, and to start concentrating on your speedo, trying to chase top speeds of how quick you get out. Oh, don't take your eyes off the road, you miss your braking point. It is a recipe for disaster. But don't go chasing lap times, speed, top speeds, corner exit speeds, corner entry speeds, anything like that. Just ride and let it flow and improve your riding. The last bit of advice I would say is pick the right track day for you. If you're kind of a little bit reticent and thinking, or nervous about doing a track day because you've seen loads of videos of complete and utter nutters and hooligans cut people up and racing around at breakneck speed, some of that does go on, but pick the right track day. I did one that was specially organised by my local advanced motorcycling group, and so that was exclusively with people that I knew, so everyone was really courteous. You knew people were going to give you plenty of room on track. I would suggest that you pick a sessioned track day rather than an open pit lane track day. Session track days, you know, you tend to be split up into groups and you go out in stages. If you're a novice, don't be tempted to say, actually I'm intermediate, because no one wants anyone to see that they're a novice. There's no problem being a novice. Yeah, don't try and put yourself in a higher group than you're comfortable with. Trust me, whatever group you're in, you will have fun. You will go quick in your own mind thinking, whoa. Yes, if you're in a novice group, you might have to follow an instructor around and know of taking for the first session or two. Trust me, it's beneficial. you just don't want to be let off the leash. So as far as picking your groups are concerned, yeah, it's far better to be a little bit too good for the group you're in than really struggling in the group. And these places are really flexible. Yeah, if you have got yourself in the wrong group or you're a complete and utter natural, yeah, the people organising the instructors will soon see that and they'll change you and move you up a group. They've got that experience, they know what they're doing. So I hope that was useful information, I hope that was informative. Check out the description below for hopefully a link of a couple of laps at Castle Combe that I talked about. So if you never have done a track day before, my advice would be book one, pick the right one, get out there and do it, and you'll be amazed at how much it will improve your riding and how you can apply what you learn to your everyday road riding. Just go out there and have some fun. It's probably the only time and place now that actually you can, any bike, jump on, ride as fast as you want, explore the performance of a motorbike without worrying about losing your license or cars coming the other way or coming off and hitting a tree or a lamppost. So go and have fun and enjoy it. Speak to you soon. Cheers.